Good news, everyone.
I'm back, baby.
It's Jake Ciely.
I'm great. Everybody else sucks.
Oh,
Oh, no. It's every nightmare I've ever had.
Excuse me?
It's time to check the link.
Pretty crazy, huh? But it doesn't matter because none of this has anything to do with the show.
You know what? You just made the list.
Oh, wait, you serious? Let me laugh even harder.
It's all in football.
Sure, we talk about it all the time. Really? No.
What's up, you ducks? And I guess rats for Jeff Ratcliffe. We give him a
Rat
special
Pack.
shout out this day. No, I know, but I'm saying rats because they're Rat Pack. Get to it. I was going to give you congratulations. Let me get to it. Congratulations, Jeff Ratcliffe pulling the Jonathan Taylor, chasing down the number one spot, officially number one on the rankings accuracy this year. I had a rough week first week. I didn't finish inside the top 45, Jeff, and they kept me in fourth, but you jumped up to number one, so kudos is the number one. We can say this, Jeff. It is not only the place for the number one ranker, it is the most accurate fantasy football show in all the land. That is all in football because you have 1 and 4. You have 2 inside the top 5 on the same damn show. So if you're not listening to us, you're doing it wrong. Code all in. Also, if you're doing it wrong, you save 20% off over at FTN. Shout out to everybody in Canada. And as to mention, if you can watch on Game Plus in Canada, you can watch the YouTube page. Please do that. Thumbs up, subscribe, do that. But also, open up your browser and go to BetsTV. You can go to BetsTV.com and watch us there live too. That both, you can cheat. You just put one on mute, whichever one you want. What else, Jeff? Oh, theathletic.com/BetsTV, all capitals. First month free. Good morning, James. 5 a.m. in Australia. You get a special shout out for that. Let's talk Week 11, Jeff. We're going to talk quarterbacks later and getting rid of the streamers, especially for tight end, because we've kind of now been recirculating a lot of the same guys, especially because Dan Arnold, I don't know what people need to do to just go use Dan Arnold at this point. It was Freiermuth before him, but before we get to the quarterbacks and before we do all the running backs and wide receivers like we normally do, I want to talk about this. Kyler Murray. If you have Kyler Murray, you've had to replace him the past 2 weeks. But if you also had Kyler Murray up until that point, you're probably not rostering a second quarterback because we talk about that all the time. You have a top 5, top 6, 7 maybe quarterback. Don't waste your time with the second one until we get past the buys and the trade deadline, and now you're just like, okay, I don't want to have to chase, if I have to go after Zach Wilson for my championship game. But right now, are you out there thinking you need another backup plan this week for Kyler Murray? He practiced today. And I say this to say, even if he's out there, are you concerned that we might see like Russell Wilson last week where they forced him out there to try to win the game, but for us in fantasy, might not be the best decision?
Is Kyler Murray playing in terrible weather where he can't grip the football? Because I don't know. I think that's slightly a different situation.
But he can't run.
Sure, and that was a huge impact on his fantasy value at the end of last season. Remember, he was electric over the first half of the year when he could run. I don't think they force him out there. I'll be bluntly honest with anybody who's rostering Kyler Murray right now. They don't need to. They are still in the mix for the number 1 seed. And
even if they lose, they're a half game up on the Rams.
Exactly. And if they do make the playoffs and they don't have Kyler Murray, they are not getting beyond their first game with Colt McCoy. Or if Colt McCoy is hurt, then whoever they have under center. Yes, I would have a backup plan in place, and there are some options we're going to get into later on in the show, but I also would take this opportunity to write this down in permanent ink or on something that you are going to see in August next year. Don't draft a quarterback early. Seriously, how many times do we have to say this? The draft capital that you expended on Kyler Murray could have been an RB, probably would have been hopefully a wide receiver, though, in that range of the draft. And if you are loaded up at wide receiver right now, you are doing well for yourself because every week there are guys like Ramondre Stevenson, A.J. Dillon, guys coming out of the woodwork at running back who can put up top 10 fantasy weeks. Doesn't happen as often at wide receiver. And at quarterback, man, if you're in a one-quarterback league, heck, you could pick up some of these guys we'll talk about later on and be just fine and get by. So keep that in mind if you do have Kyler and you didn't happen to trade for him this year.
Or you could also do it. You could capitalize on whoever's next year's value is, like Dak Prescott or Lamar Jackson, who fell to the 5th, 6th, 7th round, depending on your league and experience, where it's like, okay, now there's a value there versus going in the 3rd round. So if Kyler continues to struggle the rest of the year, Next year, he'll be the Lamar Jackson. You go get him in the 6th round. Kudos to everybody who did. So let's talk about a lot of these running back situations. And there's already a question here for Aladdin wants to drop AP. Would you pick up Tony or A-Rob? I mean, I would just pick up Allen Robinson in case Justin Fields. We're going to talk about him later on as well, is getting things right. Tony is still buried unless Shepard is out. But then this is just like Kenny Golladay, like so much going on there. It's just that's not going to sort itself out. 2022, Tony, that's what you want. But for 2021, let's talk about the Titans because that has to do with AP. Jeff, AP, getting run inside the red zone. Deonta Foreman, looking better most of the game. Jerry McNichols, as we talked about in the show, role did not change. Here's my takeaway from this, Jeff. As I said from moment one, I still say today, I'm not touching his backfield. It's it's that simple. Like, I'm out there. If Jeff Wilson was on your waivers, obviously the waivers have already run, and probably a lot of people went and picked him up because he was out there in a lot of leagues with the Elijah Mitchell now questionable injury. But I would go rather drop somebody and drop one of these Titans guys and go pick up somebody who could turn into an RB1 than trying to figure out who might be the guy. This is like the Houston Texans. People played Houston Texans for the first 4 or 5 weeks till they finally gave up.
The only challenge is that Foreman really does look good. I mean, he's just
and then it gets yanked when they get inside the red zone.
Exactly. And, the way I figure, and I guess you have to, you can't assume rational coaching, but the coaching staff does seem relatively rational. If I can see it, if you can see it, if most of us at home can see that, wow, Foreman looks pretty good. Eventually, I do think that more touches are going to go his way. So if anything, I would have him. Adrian Peterson is droppable. Jeremy McNichols isn't worth a roster spot. To me, it's like, or the Ravens. And I have to talk about the Ravens backfield. That backfield, there's who creates narratives? I know we're going to get to them in a little bit, but who creates these narratives? And then why do we buy into all of these narratives? So when we get to them, I'm going to come back to that thought.
Well, they're on the slate, so let's talk about the Ravens because, let's go. What do you want to bring? Because I have a question.
Who creates these narratives? Okay, Le'Veon Bell is cut. Oh, therefore it's Tyson Williams time. Who created that narrative? It's Bell, Cal, Freeman. Guys, the logical thing is happening. Latavius Murray is coming back, and Le'Veon Bell doesn't play special teams, so he's expendable. You can't have 3 veteran running backs on your roster and none of them play special teams whatsoever. Not even a chance they're playing special teams. So you get rid of the most expendable guy, and that has been Bell. It doesn't change anything. The backfield's still a complete mess. It's been a mess since Gus Edwards got hurt. And I don't think that shifts at all. They're throwing more, which is great for Rashad Bateman. It's great for Andrews. And, of course, it's great for Marquis Brown. And Lamar's Lamar. I mean, that's really where the value is in this offense.
So that was going to be – so my question originally why I was going to bring up Baltimore is because they're facing Chicago. It's after their bye, so Khalil Mack could be back. And I only bring that up to say that, like, every single time he's out, people just gash them in the run. Not that he makes – all the world difference. Like, they don't go from bottom 5 to top 5, but he makes a big difference whether or not he's out there in the run game. That being said, Latavius Murray, first game back. Devonta Freeman show enough to you to think that I was going to jump into another scenario, but I'll save it. It ties into this one. But do you think Freeman remains the lead, or do you think Latavius Murray gets it back? If you had to start one, I know we're not in that situation where we're not starting them, but if you had to, because there's a lot of people watching who do, will Latavius Murray or Devonta Freeman this week?
I would start Freeman and be one of those where I don't check the box score until like 8:30 at night, and I'm just praying that Latavius Murray didn't do that much. Whatever I didn't see on Red Zone didn't happen, right? I would very reluctantly start Freeman, and I don't want to start Freeman.
I have Devonta Freeman and Latavius Murray 33 and 34 back to back. As in, it's that close, both behind Kenyon Drake, who I think presents a nice opportunity against the Bengals, who gave up a ton in the passing game to running backs, specifically 2 giant games, but overall and as a whole too. So what I was going to bring up in this similar scenario, Jeff, is Darrell Williams has looked really good. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is coming back. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, 2 games, ran in the 40s for yards. I think it was 43 and 45, somewhere around there. 2 games, ran for 100. In also those games, 2 targets, 3 targets, 2 targets. There was a split already going on with Daryl Williams before Edwards-Helaire got hurt. Has Daryl Williams shown enough to you? Again, we're assuming coaching here. This is not necessarily what we do is what the coaches are going to do. But us sitting back, watching these games, do you go into week 11, if Edwards-Helaire is active, saying, Daryl Williams, 60%, Edwards-Helaire 40%, or does Edwards-Helaire go right back to his 60 and Daryl Williams gets kicked back to the 40?
It's the latter. And boy, oh boy, do we forget things so quickly. We are just 2 weeks removed from everybody thinking Derek Gore was going to be a thing in that backfield. Yes.
I said it at the time. Edwards-Helaire got hit in the shoulder and was essentially out for the drive. And that was where he did most of that work, Derek Gore, in that game.
I mean, either way, I'm not pointing the finger at you. I'm pointing the finger at everybody.
No,
just
I meant
recency
like people
bias,
that realize it. Yeah.
It's yes, Darrell Williams looked good, but you know what? The Chiefs looked good. And I think that's the more important thing. This was Patrick Mahomes back on track. Patrick Mahomes finding Tyreek Hill left and right, and Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce's so much fun to watch play football. He's right up there. He's on the top 5 for me right now. Obviously, I mean, stating the obvious, like guys like Deebo Samuel, though. I mean, I just love watching this game, and I love watching these guys who are so good after catch. I love how Travis Kelce all of a sudden like gets small and like gets extra yards by getting small. It's just so much fun. Anyway, it's a product of that. And a lot of it was in the passing game, which we know is not sustainable. So I do think, yes, Clyde Edwards-Helaire comes back. He's the lead back. But guess what? The red zone back and primarily the goal line back is probably going to be Daryl Williams. So this is going to be a very frustrating situation for fantasy purposes.
Yeah, actually, this is another one. I have them very close. I have Daryl Williams at 23 and Edwards-Helaire at 25. Both playable, both fringe RB2s. For what you just said, I do think that the split could lean Edwards-Helaire as well, but the valuable touches could be with Daryl Williams. And Daryl Williams is going to be using the passing game as well. We've already seen that. We saw that. Again, that's why I referenced the 2 and 3 targets per game for Edwards-Helaire. All right, so the Patriots, if everybody's watching, and this is Friday, you can skip ahead about 2 minutes because we're talking Thursday Night Football. Real quick, we don't have official news still as of this show. The only question that's out there, because you're starting Stevenson, this is nothing even to talk about if Damian Harris is out. But if Damian Harris plays, would you play both of them as in kind of the same conversation as fringy RB2 threes? Because you know what? Even if it's a split, it's now the Broncos. Question?
Yeah, I do think, and you know, given what we saw the practice report, I'm trying to search here if there's anything on Damian Harris practicing today. If he practiced, he practiced yesterday limited.
Right.
That is one of the key steps in the concussion protocol, and it's almost a surefire bet that he makes it through the concussion protocol today. So if I picked up Stevenson thinking I just simply have what I had last week, and I know a lot of fantasy folks play the game that way, we have to look at the entire picture. Like Elijah Moore, right? Elijah Moore, 2 touchdowns. Should I start him or Deebo Samuel, right? He did it without Corey Davis. Corey Davis comes back on the field, and look, Elijah Moore kind of fades back to the pack, right? Ramondre Stevenson did this without Damian Harris, but NFL coaches typically will not give away a job of a player who's hurt. This was a concussion situation. He's not going to lose this job. At the same time, Ramondre Stevenson has earned some reps in that backfield, but it really makes it challenging. Both of them are touchdown dependent, as we know. And yeah, both of them are going to be flex options if they both play.
So reverse. I don't know if everybody's watched the, what is it? Whose line is it anyway? Have you ever seen forward reverse when they do that thing with it's like you have to say it and then they have to repeat everything they said but backwards? And anyway, reverse, because we're going back to the Chiefs. Breaking news as we're doing this, Jeff. Coach Andy Reid, there's a chance the Chiefs don't activate Edwards-Helaire until after the bye, which makes sense. Similar to the David Montgomery situation. So I will say this, Jeff. I want to double down. In case anybody missed that episode a couple weeks ago, this was the week of the Bears before the bye, their bye. So what was that, week 9? The weeks are already all clustered together this late in the season. So week 9. If Edwards-Helaire is active, make this very clear for everybody out there, does not change, at least I'll let you speak, Jeff, but for me, does not change my stance that he's back into the lead, because the David Montgomery point that I made for that week, and we've seen this before, is when the lead is performing well and they bring back a player even though they don't need to because the player is playing well and they have a bye to get extra time. All that being said, if Edwards-Helaire comes back, they are playing Edwards-Helaire probably as the lead, because otherwise, what we just said, there's no reason to bring him back.
Well, they did. The Bears did have a reason to bring Montgomery back because Damian Williams was hurt.
Yeah, they could have. Herbert was doing fine. They could have rolled out.
Yeah, but they
Ryan
had nobody else. It's like a Packers situation. Like, do you think the Packers really want to kick the tires on Kerryon Johnson? No, but they have nothing else. So they
but they don't have to use him as the lead, is what I'm saying.
Exactly. Well, exactly. But if you have David Montgomery coming back, you're going to use him as the lead. I agree there 100%.
Right.
One other point on this: a timetable butting up against a bye week, and you may not have something if you have this player. Kareem Hunt. That bye week is week 13. It is now week 11. Kareem Hunt, not even a whisper of him being activated this week or even designated to return. I would not expect Kareem Hunt to be back until week 14. And that's just 1 week left in the fantasy football regular season.
Yeah.
So hopefully we're able to
trust
trade
that?
him. A lot of people assume they simply were going to get him back.
Yeah, it's actually Stefanski earlier today even said that. He said, not playing in week 11, but getting close. Yeah, like that was Chris Carson was close 5 weeks ago. So,
when you have Dearness Johnson playing that way, you don't need to rush him back.
Zero reason to rush him back. So let's talk 49ers situation. 49ers, Elijah Mitchell, 27 touches, everybody. He is Shanahan's boy. However, broke the finger. Jeff Wilson, 10 carries. Actually, 10 touches or 10 carries, whatever it might be.
It was carries. Nobody touched the ball as a receiver because he didn't need to throw.
Oh, yeah, that was only Juszczyk did. So 10 carries for Wilson. The broken finger. I do worry report yesterday, Jeff. It's 1 to 5 Ducks, how worried you are. The broken finger opening the door for us to get Shanahan again. How concerned are you from a 1 to 5 that this broken finger just opens the door for Jeff Wilson and we're screwed as Mitchell teams?
I mean, I'd even go with 0. I think he's going to play this week. Ty Montgomery had a finger injury that literally pierced the skin, which yikes. And they think he's going to play this week.
Don't look up pictures of that if you've never seen. Oh my God! Like I just let you know right now.
That is pretty. Yeah, it's tough. No, finger injuries are probably the best injuries you could have unless you're a quarterback, on your throwing hand. I think they can get away with this, and I do think he's going to play. Shanahan already sounded optimistic about this. Now, of course, things can change pretty quickly, as we know. And even if it is that situation, how confident are we in Jeff Wilson, or do we get like a Trey Sermon appearance out of left field?
I don't know. Healthy JaMychal Hasty, Kyle Juszczyk seeing 7 targets.
Yeah, and then a whole bunch of Trey Lance packages or something. I don't know. Anything could happen there. I would not be putting my trust in Jeff Wilson, that's for sure. He would very likely, he'll be the highest ranked if Mitchell doesn't go, but I would only be flexing him.
All right, so what are we doing with the Seahawks? Because Chris Carson maybe plays. Alex Collins has just been an RB3. It's funny. In my waiver column, Jeff, I said, I tried to tell you, these are players that I've mentioned for weeks on end, that if you haven't picked them up, because they're still under 60% rostered, if you haven't picked them up, there's nothing left for me to say. I understand if you don't like Alex Collins. He's only been an RB3. But I said I tried to tell you, because that's all I did is I tried to tell you, or I put the emoji so I don't have to go into the explanation. It's like, how is he? I tried to tell you. He stinks. It's like, no, the point was you don't have to pick him up because you don't want him because he's an RB3. If Alex Collins is still the starter, do you just roll him out there as an RB3, or do you just say, you know what? I can do better even if Chris Carson's out?
I think you can do better. And honestly, I would not expect Chris Carson to be back. Pete Carroll is the Kumbaya king. And if Pete Carroll isn't saying, he's doing great and we're expecting him pretty soon, he's not saying that. That's really concerning. This is not like a Bill Belichick type of coach where everything's a negative spin. If he's not putting a positive spin on this, there's a very real chance we don't see Chris Carson the rest of the season. That is on the table for sure. And Alex Collins, okay, he's just a guy. But sometimes you need just a guy to get you those extra points at a position where everybody is hurting right now. Everybody is decimated right now. So I see that. By the way, Daryl in here is asking about Nick Chubb. Guys, we don't hear about testing with COVID. They will not release that news. That is not NFL policy. So you only have what you've seen. And we have seen Devontae Adams and Noah Fant with this
and
type
Ben
of pattern.
Roethlisberger is already rumored to be fine for this week.
Yeah. So, Aditi Kinkabala, that was a very, it was a vague quote by her, but he's expected to play. Nick Chubb is expected to play this week. Of course, we can't figure out anything until that news comes out, but the NFL is not, there's no COVID injury report or anything like that. We're not going to find out until we find out.
So speaking of finding out, let me ask you this, Jeff. Again, Thursday Night Football, everybody. So another 2-minute quick fast forward. Wayne Gallman most of the work after Patterson left, most of the work in a blowout, but he was seeing touches before that. Not a lot, but he was seeing some work. It's similar to Deonta Foreman. I was about to say Devonta Foreman. Deonta Foreman is similar to his situation in that he looked better than Mike Davis. Not worlds. It wasn't like, oh my God, that running back is 10 times better. But he looked a little bit more explosive. We've seen Wayne Gallman with the Giants last year. A little bit different run styles of offenses, like a little zone to a little bit more man-ish. That being said, did you see enough that this is how I'm ranking them, Jeff? I'm going Gallman over Davis for upside. I think Davis has the floor if you want the floor, but like Alex Collins, I'd rather just shoot for the upside of Gallman.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if Patterson doesn't in fact play, I thought it was a high ankle sprain, but if he already has limited,
now it's like a game time decision.
Yeah, yeah. If you picked up Gallman, I mean, it's true signs that it's November in fantasy football that Wayne Gallman is now in the conversation again. I think he's like an all right player. You know, I guess that's a compliment. I don't know, but he's consistently, when he's gotten the opportunity, shown the ability to handle volume. Decent enough between the tackles and can give you the occasional catches out of the backfield. He's all right. And I think that's all they really want in that offense. And Mike Davis hasn't proved to be that. He's proved to be really inefficient. I do hope Patterson plays, though. I've really enjoyed what Arthur Smith has done with him. And that's been one of the few bright spots here recently, him and Kyle Pitts on that offense without Calvin Ridley. So I hope he plays, but I'm not going to hold my breath on that. I agree with you on the ranking, though.
Yeah. All right. So let's have a more running back situation. We have three more, two specific running backs. One more. I think the quick answer here is, Jeff, I already know what you're going to say. Assuming Miles Sanders is back, goodbye, Eagles. Don't want to touch any of them. Are you going to disagree with me on that?
It's interesting because I've really buried Jordan Howard for a number of years, but I have to admit he has run really well. And the first two matchups were easier matchups, but Denver wasn't on paper supposed to be that easy, but him and Boston Scott just absolutely shredded them. I think he's done enough to potentially cause that coaching staff to think about this one. Miles Sanders was ineffective. The team was terrible. They were downright terrible. And now they're not bad. They're not bad at all, the Philadelphia Eagles. So what has been the common denominator? Well, I don't know if it's Sanders, but Sanders was certainly not here as this is turned around. I don't know. Yeah, you're right. I don't want anything to do with it. I guess I will keep them on a bench just because running backs aren't growing on trees right now, but that's about it. I don't want them in starting lineups.
Okay, so let's go a little bit different spin on this one. So A.J. Dillon, likely looking at 2 weeks of no Aaron Jones because another one, Green Bay's bye is in 2 weeks, and his timetable is at least a week. He's out this week, potentially 2. So 2 plus the bye just makes all the sense for Aaron Jones to be back after the bye. So the reason, I'm going to phrase this a little bit differently for you, Jeff. I'll say James Conner last week. Now, granted, he was playing with Colt McCoy versus Kyler Murray and Colt McCoy versus Aaron Rodgers, but the touchdown saved his day. Because here's how I want to ask you this, Jeff. Are we being too aggressive by just slamming A.J. Dillon into the RB1 conversation?
The only production that James Conner largely had outside of that big game was touchdown production. It was the goal line plunges. He was taking advantage of the explosive offense, getting down, and then converting. The production we have seen out of A.J. Dillon recently is much more than that. We saw him do his best Jamal Williams impersonation 2 weeks ago in the passing game and take some of those touches away from Aaron Jones. The game before that, we saw him run incredibly hard. I don't think this is the same situation. We're dealing with a much younger player with much fresher legs who's not on the downslope of his career, in fact, on the upslope of his career. And now we'll be in a position where he's going to get to Ernest Johnson touches. Like, there's nobody else who can touch the ball this week. So I do think it's a little bit of a different situation. There isn't even an Eno Benjamin on this roster right now. So, no, I think it's slightly different.
Okay. So let me see if you agree with this. And when he came out of college, this is what I said about A.J. Dillon. He's like Derrick Henry, but smaller with better passing upside. So, like, he's a little bit smaller and a little bit better in the passing game. Not like look, for everybody out there, I'm not saying he's Christian. Well, not Christian McCaffrey. I'm not even saying, I'm trying to think of like a middling good pass catching running back. He's not even like James Robinson. but he's kind of like, he's better than Derrick Henry, but he's not quite the bull of Derrick Henry. He's kind of like, it's like 90% in both directions, if that makes sense. Or I guess 90% in power, 110% in receiving.
I mean, heavily used. He was barely used in the passing game at the college
Steven
level.
Jackson.
So
I like that comparison.
You're going to have to take me back. I don't really remember him in the passing game that much.
Think about it with the Rams. Go back.
That was a different era.
Too.
Different era for running backs for sure.
Well, that's what I was going to say is even at that time. Well, yeah, honestly, back in that day, if you were catching 30 passes, you were considered a Christian McCaffrey, honestly.
Yeah.
that was the anomaly to get anybody up to 50 receptions. All right. So Saquon Barkley, Jeff, assuming all the reports are he's coming back. There was practices on Monday showing him doing drills and looking 100%. He's coming back to face the Buccaneers. Yeah. Buccaneers, though, this year have been vulnerable. They haven't been beatable as in everybody goes up against them and does well, but they're not the run for the hills, don't start your running backs against them. Antonio Gibson's yards per carry were miserable, but he did score twice, and the passing game has upside in running backs against them as seen by Myles Gaskin. So Saquon Barkley, is this Christian McCaffrey? This is another one. I'm having fun phrasing things a little different for you today, Jeff. Christian McCaffrey in his first game back, I had inside the top 10. I was like, it's Christian McCaffrey. I don't even care if he gets 60%. He's Christian effing McCaffrey. That's the same way I feel about Saquon Barkley. He's still an RB1 because he's Saquon effing Barkley. I don't care if it's only 60%. He's Saquon Barkley. I don't care if it's the Buccaneers. He's still Saquon Barkley.
I don't know if I'm quite there, but I mean, I agree. It's just
James Conner or Saquon Barkley?
Right now I have James Conner ahead. My problem with
Leonard Fournette on the other side. Hold on. Leonard Fournette on the other side of the ball or Saquon Barkley?
I have Leonard Fournette ahead. I just am not quite there yet. My worry is that the offense just does nothing. They stack the box and Barkley gets the 15 carry, 40-yard game that we see occasionally out of him and doesn't do much in the passing game. That's my worry. I do want to throw out Antonio Gibson. I'm glad you brought him up. Guys, seriously, stop buying into all these silly narratives. If the team doesn't say something, then it's probably not true. And I can't find anywhere where the team said, we're seriously considering shutting him down. They're not going to. They gave him 26 touches. 26
That's
touches.
Actually, I will say this, though, Jeff. That's actually my concern, is that they're just going to get his shin in a bad spot again, and they're going to be forced.
Trade him in Dynasty. Just get rid of him in Dynasty.
Well, I'll trade him in this season. Meany and I actually, on Monday's show, Meany and I made a list. And we said for the rest of the season, after Gibson came off that game, who would you take in front of Gibson? We came up with 21 running backs we would take over Gibson going the rest of the season.
I think that's fair, but you can still use them, RB2. So,
yeah.
I
appreciate Phil and Alex and everybody at lunch and not being productive at work, although I won't say I endorse not being productive at work. Please be productive at work. If nothing else, just keep the viewers up, and we appreciate that, and then come back and watch the show. And then you can watch it on 1.5 speed, which is a lot of entertainment. I watch a lot of stuff on YouTube at 1.5 speed.
I don't. I don't watch I show my true age here. I don't watch a lot of stuff on YouTube. I listen to a ton of podcasts not related to sports.
No, my stuff isn't related. Mine is Death Battle, which goes back and does like Goku versus Superman stuff. Like for everybody out there, go watch Death Battle. I watch Pitch Meetings by Ryan George, which are terrific. He just did one for the new Home Alone, which I wasn't going to watch that movie, and the pitch meeting covered everything I needed to do. And then what's the Honest Trailers? I watch. That's what I do. That's what during lunch. These are the things I watch, but I watch them at 1.5 speed so I can get through really quickly. Real quick, Jeff. So I had the QB talk for later, and you said you're getting questions about Fields. So let's talk Bears, period, okay. Passing game. Let's talk Fields. And then Darnell Mooney has been his guy. Allen Robinson starting to see a little bit of a sign of life here. So Justin Fields, Allen Robinson, Darnell Mooney. What are your questions that you're seeing about Fields, and what did you want to talk about with the Bears?
Well, people are asking whether or not they should be streaming him, whether or not they should be rostering him going forward. And you mentioned Allen Robinson. I do, of course, a Monday Night Football betting show for FTN. You can find it on my Twitter stream at Jeff Ratcliffe, 2 o'clock on Mondays. I took the over last time we saw them on Allen Robinson, 3.5 receptions, and I had somebody in the chat here on YouTube kind of basically like laughing at it. He had 4 receptions, and he actually looked pretty good on that final reception, especially. as Fields goes, the rest of the team is going to go. And what we've seen out of Fields in the buildup, really, I know people will look at the last 2 games, but I think it's really been his last 4 games. He's increasingly involved in the run game. And a player like him, get him more comfortable. How do you get more comfortable? Well, get him on the move. Let him use his natural talents. And
well, he admitted that too, Jeff. You remember, like, from day one, even before the season started, he said he was uncomfortable in an NFL pocket. And I think that's also what was holding him back from running on top of it. As he got more comfortable with that rushing, I 100% agree with you. I am Fields could be just like Hurts rest of season, as in back end, top 10 quarterback, just start him every single week.
Yeah, but not this week. I want to see it happen coming out of the bye. And
that's why I said down
like I
the
mentioned,
stretch.
like some of those off-platform throws that he was making, I really like that. So my advice is, if you have one of the, especially the top 8 guys right now, so you exclude Kyler and Russell Wilson for the injury reasons, but if you have one of those guys, you don't need a second quarterback. Seriously, you do not. Grab whatever running backs are out there. I don't even think you will. When we're in the playoffs, we don't have to compete against as many people on waivers.
I'll tell you why, Jess. Here's why. Well, you know your league better. I'll put it this way. Know your league. In my leagues, well, at least my home league and the one other, you're in an industry leagues too. And I know there are industry leagues I'm in where I won't care about a second quarterback. The flex is one of them. I know most people in flex don't do that. There was one industry league where Scott Pianowski, he did it to me. And I know people like him, if you were in that league, I went into, that was the year I had to start from Texas A&M. What the hell's his name? Johnny Manziel. Because I did the one quarterback thing, lost my quarterback in the championship game. He had went out and grabbed the 4 worthy quarterbacks that were on waivers because he didn't need anything else in the playoffs and didn't need the bench. And he blocked me. Kudos to him. And he beat me in the championship game because I had to start freaking Johnny Manziel. So there you go. Know your league. So that's why I say I would have a backup quarterback depending on what's out there. There's the question in the chat. I just saw it. Would you go Justin Fields or Tua this week? I'm going Tua this week.
Tua. I want to see it happen with Justin Fields. I mean, I'm very encouraged, but if I'm going to hype on, you can't blow up, TJ Hawkinson. TJ Hawkinson. Okay. Yes. He had 1 target last week. Come on, guys. Seriously. Come on. It's not Jared Goff. Oh, Jared Goff can't throw the ball. He threw 32 targets in the previous 3 games before that, guys. Come on. Not just one game.
Hold on. Do you know how many double-digit games TJ Hawkinson has, though?
Double-digit target or double-digit fantasy
Double-digit
points?
Scores. Double-digit scores. Fantasy games.
Fantasy point? I don't know. 2?
3.
I'm guessing. 3?
But
I follow the volume.
I know.
Tight ends
but here's why. Like I was going to say. You know who else has 3? Darren Waller.
Yeah, well, yeah.
But the thing is, though, they have a bunch of 7 and 8 point games. This goes back to something, I think we said it in week 5 or 6, Jeff. Players can be disappointments for draft capital, but still hold value.
Sure. Absolutely.
And I think that's the biggest miss that people make. You threw Hawkinson into this. Let me ask you one real quick. Dan Arnold or Hawkinson the rest of the season?
Well, if I have Hawkinson, I'm just going to roll with Hawkinson. I do like Dan Arnold, number 7 fantasy tight end since week 5, but James O'Shaughnessy is coming back too. So that's an interesting little wrinkle.
I know. I have a feeling he's going to Eric Ebron this whole situation, just like we had with Freiermuth, and it's going to be like 80%, and it's just going to be annoying. Let's talk Cowboys wide receivers real quick. So, disappointment for Amari Cooper. Michael Gallup, solid game, first game back. Actually, they'll bring Dalton Schultz into this conversation. Everybody's back. Really, Gallup came back, and so everybody's healthy. Now, Amari Cooper, let me clarify. I'm going to say this once again, people, because a lot of people misunderstood it. I said Amari Cooper was out there the most, ran the most routes, most snaps, everything like that, and I was like, well, CeeDee Lamb missed time. The point was that even if CeeDee Lamb didn't get hurt, Cooper was still at least number 2, if still not number 1. So, assuming CeeDee Lamb and everybody's healthy, Jeff, is CeeDee Lamb the clear 1 and everybody else is going to be frustrating, or is there a number 2 here that you think that, like, let's see Cooper bounce back, and I still think Cooper is the number 2?
Well, if I'm viewing things like the Cowboys and Dak Prescott, I'm not viewing things through that lens, so I won't answer that question per se. I will say that Amari Cooper has ran more routes out of the slot. So that puts more of a cap on his fantasy ceiling than what CeeDee Lamb has. And it's really the opposite of those two last year. Lamb was primarily the slot guy last year.
Right.
So for fantasy, yes, Lamb 1, Cooper 2, and then decidedly Gallup 3. Don't want Gallup in starting lineups right now, but I definitely want him on a bench because he is one injury away from being an instant wide receiver 2. And that is not common for wide receivers. You can't really always say, we never talk about cuffs, and he's not really a cuff at wide receiver, but he is somebody who has a lot of implied value.
Okay. I don't disagree with you. I think Schultz could be droppable, honestly, at this point.
Potentially. Tight end stinks.
I would swap it for Dan Arnold in a heartbeat. There's not even a question there. I considered Hunter Henry, Jeff, but it's like Hunter Henry is essentially Dawson Knox from earlier. It's like 4 targets, 3 catches, and 2 touchdowns, or 1 touchdown. Like, if he doesn't get the touchdown, he's tight end 18. Like, that's just really like. Would you? Let me ask you that. Would you go Henry or would you go Dalton Schultz?
Henry. It's not broken right now. I'm going to keep riding that wave until it proves us otherwise. And Dalton Schultz has kind of proved us otherwise, but Henry hasn't. Mac Jones is going to look his way in the red zone. They're going to move. That offense knows how to move the football, which, kudos to that team. And the defense is obviously stepping up as well. When they get down there, though, you feel like it. It's like almost automatic. He looks for Henry. Henry is the safety blanket, and Henry is so good that he just finds a way to get open.
Hey, Jeff. Cam is back. Back again.
Yes, he is.
Stupid hats. Once again. Cam is back. Cam is back. Cam is back. Da, 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 da. Is Robbie Anderson back?
I forgot my Gatorade towel. I would be putting that up over and tucking it into the jacket here. No, not necessarily. The nice thing is, yes, Cam Newton did find him on that short touchdown pass, but let's look at the larger body of work so far this season, and it's not just that it was Sam Darnold. Robbie Anderson was not playing particularly good football, so we have to see that turn around. The nice thing that we do know, Jake, we know he has a proven upside, proven ceiling, high ceiling. So, yes, he's been widely dropped, and right now, I don't want Jarvis Landry. Yeah, of course. I don't want Jarvis Landry on my bench, though. Even though I'm going to rank him as a wide receiver 3, that's about all he is. I want guys with a higher ceiling on my bench who, maybe I'm not going to play right now, but if they catch fire down the stretch, Jake, I always say this, and I'm not a huge NHL guy, but fantasy football is like the NHL. If you get hot at the right time, you are going to win the league. Like, that's just how it works. I'm going to try and get guys who I think can get hot down the stretch, and I can't guarantee you at Robbie Anderson anything, but at least he has the high ceiling.
I am loving some NHL and NBA because my teams are doing really. The New York Rangers, this is fun. They're actually in first place. And then can explain it another day. I'm not going to do it on the show, everybody. I didn't watch quick version. I didn't watch the NBA till I moved to Virginia. My cousin was a Bulls fan. I didn't watch the NBA while I was in New York. I'm sorry, at 8 years old, but I've been a Bulls fan since I'm 8. Whatever, let it go. Bulls and Rangers, they're both playing much better, and I don't have to pay attention to the stupid Dave Gettleman Giants, which are fortunately probably not a thing next year, including Garrett and all the rest of them.
At least you said it the way a New Yorker would say it. Since I'm 8, as opposed to since I was 8, or however I guess I would say it. I've noticed that with New Yorkers, they say that. I've been a fan since I'm 8. So there you go. You did say it like a New Yorker. And honestly, do you really want to be a Knicks fan? Like, go Evan Fournier.
Yes, the Rangers are in first place in their division. Yes, they are. Go check the standings. Sandstra. Yes, they are. As of last night, they won. They're in first place.
Hockey fight. Pull the jersey up over his head.
You already mentioned the Jets. I was going to bring that up about Elijah Moore and the fact that Corey Davis just poo-poos that, unfortunately. So the Cardinals, we talked about that as well. It sounds like DeAndre Hopkins is the one that's officially not playing. If Kyler Murray plays, do you start Christian Kirk and A.J. Green as wide receiver 4s, or is it only Christian Kirk for you?
Christian Kirk is a wide receiver 3. And guys, stop with the Flacco joke. Joe Flacco. Go look up week 9 last year when everybody was making Joe Flacco jokes, and then a couple people won millions of dollars playing Joe Flacco. Just chill with that. Joe Flacco is actually a good thing because it means Zach Wilson is probably pretty close to returning, and this Mike White stuff can finally be in the rearview mirror.
All right, so did the Hurricanes play after the Rangers last night? Maybe that's what it was, and they were in first for a whole 30 minutes. I'll give you that if that's what the scenario was. So there you go. I know they were in first place after they won because I saw the headline. But Marcus Johnson, let's talk Marcus Johnson, who, by the way, in the waiver column, Jeff, I almost put IND for Indianapolis because it's just like that's Marcus. And I was like, I typed the I, and I was like, nope, And he's still in the same division. He's on the Titans now, but he's the number 2. Westbrook-Ikhine was there, but the thing was, and I think they even mentioned this during the game, Marcus Johnson and Westbrook-Ikhine play a little bit different roles in this offense. Kind of similar. They don't play the same roles, but I'm putting this out there for everybody. The similarities between like Elijah Moore and Corey Davis. Elijah Moore is playing outside. He didn't usurp the position once Corey Davis came back. So different roles here. Are you intrigued by Marcus Johnson because Julio Jones is on the IR? He's out for at least 2 more weeks, at least.
Yeah, and I don't know. I'm not gonna hold my breath on Julio Jones anytime soon. Marcus Johnson looked pretty good. Everybody probably had that reaction when he took that it was like an intermediate pass and then run after catch. And I was like, oh, who's that? Like, that's not AJ Brown. Who is that? Why not? I'm not going to start him this week. But again, if you have a high ceiling and he's got to throw, Tannehill has to throw to somebody. Absolutely. I'll take a shot on a guy who has some decent speed. And, we knew who he was from the past. So, he's flashed at various points. So why not?
Did you just a little bit way of saying he is who we thought he was? Did you kind of just say that, by the way? By the way, speaking of Tannehill, did you know since week 3 he's inside the top 8? Like,
not surprising.
Sneaky. I would have said, like, if you told me since week 3, where do you think Tannehill is? I would have guessed QB 12 or 13. I would have guessed quite that high. He's under the radar, just kind of putting up those numbers again. He's going to finish the season as like QB 11, QB 10 again, and he's going to be like right in that mix. But hey, you play all the games. That's just by attrition. There's a good chance here. Rashad Bateman, you mentioned his name earlier. I want to come back to him. Has he shown enough for you to just lock him in as your third wide receiver or potentially flex wide receiver? Or, this is where I want to go with it, Jeff. We don't usually talk a lot of trades, but the trade deadline is this week or next week in most leagues. Do you get out of Bateman? Do you get out of Bateman because at this point he might be peak value? Like, this might be the best we ever see Bateman.
No, that makes sense. The target volume is where it's at here, and Marquis Brown is still dominating in targets. He's 12th among wide receivers right now in targets. And then you have Mark Andrews, who is the number 2. Bateman is the clear number 3. And thankfully, Sammy Watkins answered every question that I had about that situation. But yeah, it's tough with that offense. They are throwing more, but they're still a run-heavy offense. I wouldn't mind it. I don't think we can lock anybody in anywhere for the most part when we're talking about wide receiver 3s. I'll play him as a wide receiver 3 this week and reevaluate after the fact if I'm not moving off of him. But I do like what we've seen out of him so far. He certainly has that higher ceiling and he's playing good football. So all of that is good. But yeah, I think if you can move off of a guy and sell high right now before the trade deadline, then definitely do so.
And the thing that I have a concern of with Bateman is the first weeks 12 through 16, Cleveland, good pass defense. Pittsburgh, worrisome. Cleveland again. Green Bay, worrisome. Cincinnati, good. Rams, worrisome. So it's like up and down, and it's one of the more dicey situations going down that stretch. By the way, I saw somebody ask about Week 13 streamer, which is like, oh my God, so far ahead. Even though it's only 2 weeks out, it sounds so far ahead. The person who answered, I'm assuming you read my APA column, because where was the answer? Azar Ahmed, I appreciate that. Derek Carr does have the most favorable by far AP adjusted points allowed for anybody. Go check it out, The Athletic. Weeks 13 and 14, you get Washington and Kansas City. That is the best 13-14 you can find for quarterbacks in a passing game. Close to him is Russell Wilson, but you're not picking up Russell Wilson as a streamer to answer that question. Let me ask you this one, Jeff. If I had to tell you where Jamal Agnew ranks since week 5 at wide receiver, where would you guess?
Where do you rank in catches last week?
I'm asking you a question first. That's going to be part of your answer. I mean, that is part of your answer, but where do you think he ranks?
He's probably annoyingly like top 15. I don't know.
Oh, no. He's not that high. Okay. He's not that high. He's only wide receiver 35, but one fewer game than a lot of people. You say that. Where did he have catches last week? But they found a way to get him involved. And I'm just saying, Jeff, is like Jamal Agnew. Here's my question. When are we going to start Jamal Agnew and stop screwing around with Laviska Shenault? Because that's my question. Because we can't force coaches to do things, and I think everything's been said and clear. Laviska Shenault's not the answer, that at least for Urban Meyer.
Yeah, he isn't. I don't think we can start Jamal Agnew, though. 0 catches on 5 targets. He basically had the running play version of a punt return touchdown. I mean, because that's what he is. He's an offensive weapon. He's a weapon. The guy can play defense for you if you wanted him to, because he has throughout the course of his career. I think Marvin Jones is really the only answer. And I'll tell you, One Rock Greg, if you're watching right now, guys, take a look beyond last week. He's saying Marquis Brown isn't catching the ball. We're 1 week removed from 9 catches. Seriously, just 1 week. The recency bias is, if you want to become a better fantasy football player, get rid of the recency bias. Stop looking at a tree and look at the darn forest, and you're going to see much better things, and you're going to have much better evaluations of players.
Don't tell me what to do. You're not my real dad, Jeff. Look, I think we talked about that plenty. Hopefully we hammer that point home, and that's why we're on the top. So before we get out of here, a few more. Bryan Edwards. We had this discussion last week, Jeff. I said, don't drop Bryan Edwards. Now, did I rank him as more than a wide receiver 4? No, because I said there was risk involved. And it wasn't Deshaun Jackson primarily that filled the Henry Ruggs role. It was Zay Jones with Deshaun Jackson, who Deshaun Jackson decided. Is there anybody else in the league, Jeff, that wants to try to give the ball away to the other team more than Deshaun Jackson? Is it like I honestly think if he's not going to. If he made the Hall of Fame, his bust should have like a ball falling off to the side with like a hand not attached to it, because that's just what he does. Anyway, that being said, Bryan Edwards is not a great separator. I had this conversation in another podcast. He doesn't have to be. Not every wide receiver has to be. Dez Bryant, not a great separator. Kenny Golladay, a terrible separator. But what Bryan Edwards does when you have a threat like Deshaun Jackson, Henry Ruggs before the situation happened with him, Zay Jones, which they found out and fixed that problem, he can do what he does. What he does is a wide receiver 4, but that has value. Wide receiver 4s have values because a lot of teams out there fantasy teams are starting wide receiver 5s at this point of the career or season. Are you in on Bryan Edwards or are you out?
He is the Vegas Donovan Peoples-Jones, and I think that's a great way to view him and
missed
realize
practice
that he
today.
has upside, but he also has no target value. By the way, Phil Mike, he's saying I need a Grinds My Gears segment. No, I already have that. It's 2 hours a day on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio, 10 to noon Eastern. That's what it is, man.
I love the fact that you dropped that in there. Usually I get that for you. I'm looking, by the way, I was trying to pull it up. Where I thought I have a report from True Media where I pull all my stats every single week, and I was looking to see if we had a catch percentage on the season. But anyway, I'm going to pull it up while you're answering this next question as we get out of here. Donovan Peoples-Jones missed practice. You brought up Jarvis Landry before. With no Donovan Peoples-Jones, Jeff, would you start Jarvis Landry?
I wouldn't, because I don't roster him anywhere, but I do have him ranked as a wide receiver 3. And hey, let's get some Anthony Schwartz in our lives for DFS purposes. Maybe
is he even
I wouldn't be
practicing?
starting him. I didn't see the practice report yet today, but yeah, I don't want Jarvis Landry. I think it'll be a disaster, and Nick Chubb will have 30. Nick Chubb will get that DeAndre Swift work.
By the way, 63.4% receiving percentage this year for Marquis Brown, which is not top of the league, but it's by far not terrible.
No, it's not bad.
It's not terrible. You know what else is not terrible? Look at that segue. Following Jeff at Jeff Ratcliffe and listening to his show and listening to his rankings in mine, because he is number 1 and I am number 4. So listen to Jeff first and check out FTN code ALLIN, 20% off. TheAthletic.com/BestTV, all capitals, your first free month. We'll be back next week. Will be week 12. I mean, we're running out of time here, Jeff. It's been a hell of a lot of fun. So we see you guys. I'll see you on Monday. We'll see you on Wednesday.